Hello, everyone. Welcome to LLK number 77. I am Laura Nelkin. I'm a knitwear designer. I live in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes region, and I am joined this evening by my alter ego Lola, who is very excited to be hanging out with you tonight. We are in the only room in my house that has air conditioning. We have a lot of wildfire smoke from Canada right now. I'm so sorry for my northern neighbors. I hope everyone is faring well. And so this is really the only room to be in my house to feel comfortable and safe. And I'm so glad you get to join me here. It makes like an extra bonus. I was in here last night and it gets a little like boring and lonely up here. But with you here, we are good to go. I see people in the chat introducing themselves from all over. Y'all came a little early and have been chatting together in the live chat. You will notice when I do a live that I try not to look over at the chat too much because I get distracted very easily. So Susie, my awesome moderator, is over there. And if anybody has any questions, I try to ask you to hold those questions to the very end of the live, because then I can look over and answer them all for you. What this does is for people who are watching the live later, they're not kind of missing out on that chat. If you're watching later, you can say replay live chat so you can see what everybody is saying in the chat as I am talking with you all. So I just came upstairs. I was wearing a bling tee and my Mithrola, and the neckline wasn't really working together. So I ran and grabbed a black tank top, and I came back in and Max was like, "You look fancy." And I was like, "I feel fancy tonight." But honestly, I'm wearing Mithrola, which I'm going to talk to you about, which was July Lola's Choice kit and design. And Mithrola will make anything fancy. I saw in the chat earlier while you guys were chatting that Susie said she wore it with her apron while she was cooking dinner and she felt fancy. So it's a great way of wearing a black t-shirt or a gray t-shirt or whatever and throwing on a necklace and feeling like you're a little bit zhuzhed up, right? I don't think I just looked over and I'm not supposed to do that. The replay doesn't work until after the live is over. So that was for people who are watching after I'm done being live. Sorry, not looking over there again. I promise. Where was I? I have a lot to talk to you about tonight. I'm going to tell you about Mithrola. I'm going to tell you about the long sleeve lowland cheetah that is off my needles that I'm obsessed with and wore a ton on my trip. I am going to tell you about my trip to Norway. Over to my left is a pile of yarn that I purchased while I was on my trip to Iceland and Faroe and Norway. I have an amazing giveaway for you at the very end of this live, and I'll tell you about that when we get to the very end. And I have the winner of last month's live. So I think the last live I did was in May, and I took June off, and I'm back in July, and I'll probably do another one in September and give myself August off to play a little bit and take some deep breaths. So without further ado, let's jump right in. I already told you what I'm wearing because I know someone over in the chat is probably asking that, and I'm going to tell you about it. But first, I want to tell you about my long sleeve lowland cheetah, which I think was almost off the needles when we had our last live. I knit my lowland cheetah with one skein of Jill Draper Make Stuff Lee. This is a short sleeve lowland cheetah that I knit with Barocco Remix Light. And I knew that I wanted to knit this exact same sweater, but with lace weight yarn at the same gauge of 5 stitches to the inch. And I did that and made a 3/4 length sleeve so I could get the whole thing done in one skein. It comes like just above bracelet length right there. And I ended up wearing this for the first half of my trip almost every day. It is the perfect weight. So if you have any kind of woolly lace weight yarns that you think would make a good sweater, I think Lowland Cheetah lends itself to those lace weights really well, particularly because the body is stockinette stitch and will knit up very quickly, but that yoke has this lovely Lolancha pattern, a stitch pattern that has floats that are lifted up so it doesn't get too heavy in the lace weight yarn. And you can see we did a photo shoot shoot when we were shooting Mithrola and a few other things, just to show you my new sweater. And then when we get into the Norway pictures, you will see some photos of it as well. There's a little detail shot with my beta cuff and the bottom border. I love it. I have it here and I wanted to show it to you now that it's all done and blocked, because here it is kind of out and in its big sweater self. But when I'm packing it, it is the best, like wear it on an airplane or pack it up in a suitcase, because especially if you suck all the air out of it, it's like the world's smallest little sweater right here. So if you're someone who travels a lot like I do and you're thinking about things that are going to pack up really small and that you can wear multiple times in multiple different ways, Lolancita in lace weight might be the perfect thing for you. So that's me just being very excited about Lolancita. When I designed Lolancita, I've been looking at I try to, as a business person, I have to like put on that hat every now and again. We all know I love knitting and I just want to knit all the things. I looked at numbers for Lolancita and it's did not sell very well. And one night I turned to Max and was like, I'm not sure I get to design sweaters anymore. They really don't sell for me the same way that like shawls and cowls and jewelry accessories do. And I'm not sure they're worth the time. Sweaters take way more time to knit. They take more time to grade. Lolancita, you guys know I was working on that for 2 years because I kept not being happy with the yoke. So that one's not mathing very well, but I love it, love it, love it so much. And I'm going to give you a little hint of something I'm working on later, which is another sweater, even though I said I'm not designing any more sweaters. So, but it's the best. So I had to do it. That's Lolancita. The next thing to tell you about is Mithrola. So Mithrola was July 2026's Lola's Choice kit. So if you are a Lola's Choice member, you got a kit that looks like this in the mail. I don't believe that we tied everybody's bags to their cards because it was all coming together and it couldn't get mixed up. And I am getting the best feedback from you all. And I'm so excited about it because you all were as excited to learn how to knit with chain as I was when I learned about knitting with chain. So Mithrola comes with a detailed video tutorial that teaches you every step of making the necklace, how to put the findings on and everything. So I thought what I would do is just show you some photos of it close up so you can see it, and then talk to you a little bit about the origin story of how I kind of like saw some videos about knitting with chain and then I tried it and like how we ended up here. Does that sound good? Like a little bit of fun? That's what these lives are for, is kind of like the backstory. So here I am knitting with some chain with some beads on the edge because you know that that's what I like to do. And this is my photographer's niece who offered to model for me, because one of the things, ladies, that happens as we age is our skin is not as photogenic as it used to be. And I knew that if I wanted to have a necklace on a bare neck, that it was not going to get to be on my neck. So, Julia's niece offered to model for us. She's gorgeous. She was really fun to work with. So super sweet. And club members got 2 different bead colors in their kit to choose from. I should mention here that Lola's Choice is sold out for July, but I am going to be releasing kits in the shop soon, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So here's me wearing a Mithrola, and you'll see that I decided to wear kind of like a mock turtleneck to show it over something, over a piece of fabric. This is a shirt that I got from Jay Akuma, who is a Native American designer whose work I absolutely love. And I love when I can buy a shirt for a photo shoot because I can write it off and also support another maker. I'm really excited to own this piece. Here is another gorgeous photo on some gorgeous skin. Love that. And then here is a photo of a bunch of different colors of the kits that are going to be coming out. And then here is a flat lay of what everything looks like in the kit. One of the things that you all will get to learn how to do when you're making Mithrola is how to add the clasps to the back of the kit. And if I just go to the overhead camera, I can show you what the back of the clasp looks like right here. You can see as I play with this knitted chain that it is so like drapey and yummy and lovely. This is a 1.1 millimeter stainless steel chain, and the way that it's cut, it just like hits the light so beautifully. Mithrola is knit from one tip to the other tip, and it's knit asymmetrically on purpose. And then when you are done knitting it, you get to learn how to attach these clasps with crimp beads. And if you all, for those of you who are club members who've already watched the video, in the video, I struggled a little bit getting the chain dropped down into the crimp bead. That was a little bit of work for me. And then Susie Keelis on Facebook one day was like, hey, I figured out another thing. And then Susie Ripple, there's lots of Susies out there. Susie Ripple chimed in and was like, I used a really, really small crochet hook. So I wanted to show you Susie Keelis's trick for getting the crimp bead onto your chain at the end, because it might help some of you if you're struggling with the way that I show it in the video. And I'm putting on my reading glasses because I need to, because that's life. And I'm wearing a little Cordelia there. So let me get all set up and show you what's happening here. So I'm going to go to the overhead and then I'm going to zoom in so that we're a little bit closer. And what I was showing how to do in the video is when you are done with the, there goes my crimp bead already. When you're done with the necklace and you need to do the crimp bead, there, it just worked really well. You have to drop the stainless steel chain into the crimp bead, which is kind of challenging. And what Susie figured out, which is brilliant, is she took a dental floss threader and she opened it up so it just became one long nylon piece. And you could also do this with a really thin piece of wire. And then she took that and went through the last chain on the piece of stainless steel chain. And then she threaded that through. Whoops, is that not going to work now that I have it on there? I tested this, Susie. It did work. Oh, I know how to do it. Now I have to go back through again with the dental floss threader, and then that bead goes onto the chain. Do you guys love when I have brain farts in front of you and then you're like, wow, she is also a flawed human. And now I have that crimp bead on my chain right there. And that might be a little bit easier for some of you than just dropping the chain down into the bead. Susie just used a super small crochet hook if you have one. The other thing I think Audrey said in the Ravelry group, which was also brilliant, is that you could just hold the crimp bead instead of holding it in your hand. You could hold it in some pliers so that it's a little easier to drop that chain in there. So that might help anybody who is struggling getting their chain into their crimp bead. One of the many things I love about knitting with you all is how we end up becoming this like fountain of knowledge together. And for those of you who've been knitting with me for a while, you know I try to keep my ego in check, and I am always happy to be learning from you and then sharing my ideas back with you and then sharing your ideas so that nobody's struggling and we're all moving forward. So we are in this knitting journey together, and I love you all sharing with me, and then I love sharing it back with everybody else. So thank you. So that's Mithrola in a nutshell. I originally saw knitting with chain, I think much earlier this spring. I was, as one does, scrolling Instagram. I saw an artist in LA making things with chain. I think she was crocheting with chain. And I was like, that looks very interesting. And I started doing a deeper dive, and then I found some chain and got it sent to my parents' house. And it was quite expensive, the original chain I found. And I was visiting my parents, and I think I already told you the story. I made this little teeny tiny reel, and I think it has like 33 million views on Instagram and Facebook now. And I was like, okay, well, that clearly hit a chord. Let's see if I can get more chain. And then for the next few months, I was really working hard to see if I could find a supplier and if I could get that supply in time to be able to make kits. And it was touch and go for the July kit for a little bit there. They promised me it was going to be here mid-June, and I was going to be on the cruise. And when you're doing this kind of thing, I want to lay eyes on something before kits are like built and shipped out. And kits were being built while I was away, but we got it just in time for me to like double check it and knit with it and make sure it was okay. And a little bit of a nail biter, but I think I like it like that. A little, keeps me young or energized or something. So I've already sold out of that original order that I did of chain, and we just got more in. And so I'm going to be having kits for the shop. And if you are a current Lola's Choice member, you are going to get like a heads up as soon as they get listed in the shop. And you're also going to get a special discount code as a thank you. So if your Lola's Choice membership has ended since you were just got the July's kit, I send out those emails today if you had a 3 kit or a 6 kit subscription and it's ended. If you are wanting to get that discount code, make sure that you sign back up, but no pressure. I don't try to be cool, not too pressury, whatever that is. Okay, so that's La Lanchita. That is Mithrola. I do have a book coming tomorrow that is like textile techniques and metal that I'm very excited to check out. I was hoping it was going to be here for tonight, and I ordered it, and it's not going to be here till tomorrow. So I'll share that on the internet with you all, but I'm quite excited to check out like what else we could do knitting with chain. I was looking at my back catalog of jewelry designs. I have some earrings called Trio that I think would be really beautiful, or like the boutin earrings that have some kind of like drape or swag to them. I think might work well. I think I might have to change things a little bit because um, the way boutin worked, the chain has absolutely no structure to it. It just falls. So it'll be interesting to see if the beads can hold it out a little bit or not. And I'm going to be traveling next week, and I might bring some like supplies with me just to play and see what happens with some earrings. I also have a necklace called Trio that was like in Adorn from which is this like little jewelry book I did in maybe 2014. And I kind of wonder if Trio would work, but it's worked. You cast on all of the stitches, so I'd have to make sure that there's enough chain. And the spools that came with the kit only have 11 yards of chain, so that is not very much. I think I'm not going to knit with chain with y'all tonight because there is that separate tutorial for it, and I'll be doing some Instagram reels to teach more about knitting with chain. So you have a lot coming down the pike pretty soon. Okay, so that is a little more about Mithrola. I've been looking over, I haven't seen any huge questions come up. I just kind of looked over quickly. So that's what's off the needles. Oh, the other thing that's off the needles that I'm not going to show you is that new scarf scape that I designed for the cruise. So everybody on the cruise got a new version of scarf scape. They got a kit in one of like 7 or 8 colors, and I have yarn on order to put kits into the shop for scarf scape. I don't even have a photo of scarf scape here to show you. It was the second kit of last year's N Club, and it's knit with Billam yarns, and their yarns are absolutely gorgeous. And everyone on the cruise was having a very good time with the colors that they chose and knitting them. And that should be out in August. That is my goal for Scarfscape. For those of you wondering, on the needles, I have 4 things on the needles right now, which is a record for me. I normally only have like 2 things on the needles at a time. I like to have something on the needles. I like to write it up, and then I move on to the next thing. But I've got some stopping and starting with a few ideas. So I have, I'll just lift it up. I have the sweater I shouldn't be knitting or designing because I said that I wasn't going to design or write up any more sweaters. But I think I say this every time. This is my new favorite sweater. I know that I'm going to wear the crap out of it this winter, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you too. And I think that my goal for it is going to be to do a structured knit along like I've done before with sweaters. And when I do those structured knit alongs with like knit this part up to here by this date, knit this part by this date, and then we have threads for every step of the sweater and video tutorials to support them, I think the sweater will sell better for me, and I think it'll also support you all in knitting it. So that might be the difference with Lola Cheetah, as I did a few different videos for it, but I didn't really do any like concerted effort. So this one doesn't have a name outside of, I've been calling it Tia Maria, and that's all I'm going to tell you for now. I'm giving too much away. For those of you on the Portugal cruise with me, you know what's happening with the sweater. The other thing that's on my needles is the design for the Fiber Mill tour in September. And it is so cool that I'm not telling you anything about it, except that I figured out a new technique for Lola's pickup line and garter stitch. And also it really needs to be a mystery knit along. So I'm going to be very, very guarded about it. And I think I have an idea. Everybody who's doing the Fiber Mill tour gets a kit. But then I think I also have an idea for everybody else if it becomes a mystery knit along. And so I'm just holding those cards close to my hand right now. But by the time we have another live, I'm going to know what's going on. It already has a name. The name makes me so happy. It brings me great joy. I just gave you hints, right, Melinda? Okay. The other thing that's almost off my needles is the Lola September kit design, and that I already have the yarn here. The other yarn is coming from Spain. That's all I'm going to say about that one. And it's almost ready to go to tech. And finally, the last thing that's almost off my needles, I just have to finish the crown, is a hat version of the FLX cowl and headband that I was working on while I was on the trip. It was a really good kind of portable, pick it up, put it down project. So those are the 4 things on my needles. Also, I know in there's like a pair of Nova shorties that are kind of just, you know, I'll knit them at some point. And then my husband is getting a scadola, and I plan on sizing scadola this fall. That's a lot. Summer is like, as a knitwear designer, a very busy time, so that I'm ready for y'all for fall when people start picking up their needles again and start doing all their gift knitting. I know that those of you who are watching are like knitters with a capital K. You're like the ride or die knitters, so it doesn't matter to you if it's summer or winter or fall or spring, but fall is when I try to definitely have a slew of new patterns to knit with you all through the winter. So that's kind of my knitting. And then let's go over my trip that I went on in June with Wild Onion Productions. It was a solstice cruise on the North Sea. I have a little paper here of my itinerary, so I remember the names of all the places. I always like give myself little notes. And the first photo that I'm going to show you was taken in Iceland, and I'm wearing my Lola Cheetah, so you can see how much I wore it. And you might actually see some sneak peeks of that scarfscape in some of these photos. We started the cruise in Reykjavik, Iceland. A few of us on the day before the cruise started went on the Woolen Circle, which is a tour in southern Iceland that goes to all wool destinations. And so I have a few photos of that. And then this is a little bit smaller of a slideshow, I would say. What was different about this trip is that I wasn't in charge. I was hired by Wild Onion Productions, so I was really relaxed. Like I was kind of half on vacation. And those of you that were on the cruise with me know that I was pretty relaxed, maybe as relaxed as you've ever seen me, which that's fun. So here I am in my Lola Cheetah. We actually got pictures in this exact same spot with, I think, Kelly and Laurel and maybe Vicky, and we were all wearing Vinders. I should go back and try to find that photo because we were right here and we were outside of the Wool Cooperative, and I actually bought that necklace I'm wearing at the Wool Cooperative. And here's some Icelandic sheep. We had a great driver that day, and most drivers won't pull over to let you take pictures of sheep, but he was amazing and totally pulled over for us, which I loved. Our first stop on the Woolen Circle tour was to visit Gudrun, who is the owner and dyer at Hespa. She is a natural dyer. I controlled myself when I was visiting Gudrun because I still have yarn that I bought from her 12 years ago that I've not knit with. But it is Einband, which is that Icelandic lace weight yarn. And I think it could do something really interesting in a lightweight sweater. So I maybe have an idea for it at some point. And then we went to the cooperative, which you saw a photo of me outside of. And then we were super lucky to get to go to Oops Spinny. And this is Hulda here on the left. She has the same kind of fiber mill that Melinda at Alchemy Fiber has, and then also the same kind of fiber mill that I saw when we were in the Faroe Islands. And why am I blanking on the name of them right now? It'll come to me in a second. They are made in Canada on Prince Edward Island, and someone is going to chime in the chat in a second, and I am going to tell you the name of the mill, of the mini mills, but they've been being purchased all over the world. So when Max and I were in Iceland 2 years ago, we tried to go to the mill and they had just closed when we got there. So we didn't get to go. And I did get to go this time. And that yarn on the right is, left is really unique because it is Icelandic cashmere goat. And it is there's about 72 Icelandic cashmere goats on the island of Iceland. And Hulda has been milling some of their fleece fur into yarn. I'm not sure the exact term for cashmere goat fur. Or fleece. It might be fleece. I know it has to be hand picked off of the goats, so it's very labor intensive. And this skein of yarn, I'm just going to stop for a second and show it to you in the overhead camera because I can. The skein of yarn was $51 US, right? So I got one for you and I got one for me. I wanted to get enough to make a whole sweater, but clearly I did not. And I'm just going to make a little precious something. It's basically like Kiviot, right? It's going to be a little extraordinary scarf or something. I'm pretty excited to play with it. I bet it wants to be a little bit lacy. I'm not quite totally sure yet. Something really, really special. And you can see Hulda is wearing a dress that she knit out of this yarn, and it was superb. It fit her so beautifully, and she wasn't wearing it when we came, and she actually had her daughter run over and get it because we were all excited to see what she did with the sleeves. And sorry, Belfast Mills, thank you, Maureen. I appreciate you. I knew somebody would help me out, either Google it or no right there. Then once we were done with that tour day, we went to a tomato farm, which was fabulous. We had a big long day. We got back to Reykjavik. And then the next day we got on the ship and we were on a Holland America ship, and it was really fun. We were on the Rotterdam. And one of the things that was kind of extraordinary about this cruise, which seems weird because y'all know I'm not a sports ball lady, is that we were watching the World Cup when Holland was in the World Cup, and the Holland America ships are, surprise, they're Dutch. I always forget the Dutch and the Danish, but they are Dutch. And so we got to watch the World Cup with the Dutch, watching their team playing, and it was very sedate. Like, I am very used to American sports ball where people are loud and cheering and talking and having opinions, and the Dutch were so polite that mostly everybody was sitting there and watching. They'd like talk a little on their sides, and then when they'd make a goal, they would definitely yell, and then the captain would blow the horn, and that was very exciting, and we'd all scream because we're American, so we were a little louder and excited for them. But it was like a kind of really cool cultural experience to watch from another country's perspective. Really enjoyed that piece of the puzzle, and was not what I was expecting for kind of like an international cruise experience. The first place we were supposed to go when we left Reykjavik was Jaime in the Westman Islands. And unfortunately, the seas were a little rough that day. So I snapped this pic of one of the Westman Islands as we were sailing by, but the captain did not end up feeling comfortable stopping there. And it was unfortunate because that was where we were supposed to get to see the puffins. Our next stop was in Djúpivogur. I think I'm saying that almost correctly. And I took this picture from land of our boat with the mountains behind it when you can still see the snow on them. And I had a really gorgeous walk with a few friends around Djúpivogur. And we kind of sat and we kind of took in the scene. And then we did some good walking and got back on the boat right before it left. It was just a gorgeous day to like not have a tour and wander around. There was a beautiful yellow lighthouse and exquisite landscape and a ton of seabirds. After we left Djúpivogur, the next day we came into Faroe Islands, and some of you might have missed. I guess it was 2 years ago that Max and I went to Faroe for about 10 days, and I did a live where I showed you a lot of photos from Faroe. And I was lucky enough to meet Susanna from Kvivik Knit when I was there last time, and she met me and Susan and Mary and Edna and Lauren and took us on a private wool tour, a super quick private wool tour. And I did do a video of that I put on Facebook and Instagram if you want to see that. But there I am with Susanna and Torrid on the right. And that was at the very end of our very fun day that we had together. We were at port right as they were dropping us off. We went to Navia. And there is that iconic gas station yarn that I bought that we knit the Farola socks out of a year ago for Lola's Choice. And we learned a lot at Navia about everything they do and the yarns that they make. And I might have bought some yarn there that I'm not going to show you later because it could be a future Lola's Choice yarn. It's really nice. This is all of us. We pulled over for some photo ops up at the top of the mountain before we went into Kvivik. But Susanna and Torrid did a phenomenal job driving us all over. We went to Kira, to a micro mill. We went back to Kvivik. Susanna had a whole spread for us of traditional Faroese foods and then also some more like Danish foods. We got to try fermented whale meat and fermented lamb that I really liked. We went out on a limb. Every time, my whole whopping 2 times I've been to Faroe, I really love it there. And I am working on doing tours with Susanna, hopefully in the future, probably not 2027, but hopefully for 28. So if you've traveled with me before, you'll hear about that first. That's how that works. There we go. Back to photos. Then we went on to Edinburgh. And you'll notice I don't have any photos of me teaching because when I teach on cruises, I'm so busy teaching that I don't take any photos of me teaching. And also the rooms are never like as aesthetically pleasing for photography as the scenery is. I taught 3 classes on this cruise, and the Edinburgh day, I actually stayed on the boat and had like a day off, and we could see the Forth of Firth, that's this bridge right here from the boat. And it was a pretty extraordinary day. It ended just beautifully with a rainbow over the Forth of Firth. Who doesn't want to just say the Forth of Firth 800 times? And then we had another sea day before we landed in Rotterdam. So I thought I would just give you some photos of ship life. Over on one side right there, you see an amazing yellow sweater that one of the guys who played in like the BB King lounge was wearing. And we all asked him if we could take a picture because that stitch is insanely interesting. It looks a lot like the stitch that I used in, oh, Bless Your Heart. It looks a lot like Bless Your Heart, but different. And I'm excited to like see if I can recreate it somehow and get beads on all those little floats. Look for this stitch and design soon near you. Oh, maybe with the cashmere we could do that. I just thought of that. Thanks for your inspiration, everybody. In the middle, also inspiring, are the smoked whiskey drinks on the Holland America Rotterdam that were Lola's personal favorite. And then finally, an activity I did not do was a floating booze hot tub in Rotterdam. I think they also have them in Amsterdam. So that's a hot tub. It is a wood fired hot tub, and then it has an engine on the back so you can drive yourself around while you're drinking and soaking. What could go wrong? I sent that picture straight away to my friend Patty Lyons to be like, next time we go to Amsterdam, we're doing this. I don't know if you've seen them anywhere near you. I've never seen one before. Um, then after we left Rotterdam, I did get to see some windmills when we were in Rotterdam, but didn't get any pictures that were wide enough to make sense sharing. A group of us, what town were we in? We got to Allison, Norway, and a group of us, Susie hired a driver and invited some of the travelers that she had met before to go to the Ralma Mill and go on the Troll Road. So we had a really fun day at the Ralma Mill. I got a little bit of yarn. It's a very big operation. I'm really glad that we got to see that. It was very different than those smaller micro mills that we saw in Faro. And it was absolutely beautiful. It was a gorgeous drive and a gorgeous day. It was like gray and a little rainy, just like I love, right? I hiked up a little hill so I could take pictures of people down on that old stone bridge down there, if you can see that. There also was a really big troll theme in Norway. So here's all of us under a three-headed troll. And then two of the husbands went on a different troll road thing where we were doing our yarn thing. So I photoshopped myself in with them on their photo, which, you know me, I love a good Canva paste ahead in a place. This is another photo of Allison just walking around later before we got back on the boat. It was a charming little city, and they had a really interesting Art Deco museum that was closed by the time we got back to the city, but I could have spent more days there. I know I just scratched the surface of what there is to do in that area. And then the next morning, we were coming into the fjord that Olden is at the base of, and they opened the front of the boat very, very early in the morning, like 6 a.m. So I woke up super early. Remember, we were there in June, so it was light for like 20 hours, 22 hours of the day. So 6 a.m., it kind of already felt like 9 or 10 a.m., maybe even a little later. And it was absolutely gorgeous out. And it is always worth waking up early when you can see landscape and scenery like this. And you can see the way the mountains are just kind of like echoed in the water. It was breathtaking, really gorgeous. That day in Olden, I hiked up to a glacier. This is one of those, like, it wasn't disappointing because I got a really good hike in and it was quite a workout and up a big hill. And I loved being outside and getting fresh air and not being on a boat. But the photos of the trip I signed up for had you like walking on a glacier, right? And then actually, what it was is you hiked up to a lake and then you could see that glacier. So you can see the glacier up there, and then I kind of have a close up so you can really appreciate the glacier. So I guess there's a way to get up there and be up on the glacier, but I think that was much more of a hike than any of us had time to do. I also found this amazing slug on my way down from that hike. I did that hike alone, which sometimes is really nice on a trip with a lot of people because it lets me kind of like reset and talk to myself in my head a little bit and then crouch down on the ground and take pictures of slugs. This was a photo stop on the way back from that hike, and look at the clarity and green of that water and then the echo of the mountains in it. I so want to come back here with Max and do some camping because all along these lakes and fjords, there were like little campsite spots, and I know that he and I would just lean right into that. Here's another photo because it's too pretty. I love that someone just commented they love the photo of the slug. I do too, Anne. Um, and then our next port was in Oda. And in Oda, I didn't have like a tour planned. And then last minute I was looking on the Holland America app and I saw that they added like a mobile is floating, right? A floating sauna on the fjord. So we got off the boat onto a tender, and we took a tender boat to the thing, to the dock, and then we walked. The guy met us, and we walked over, and then we got onto another boat, which was basically like a big pontoon boat with a sauna on it. And it was a really hot sauna. It was amazing. And then I jumped right into that 50-degree water, and I have never felt so alive. Like I get it in a way that I never really got it. And then of course I knit in my robe while we were floating around the sauna. And then if I got a little cold, I would go and like get back in the sauna. And then I paddleboarded. I only dove in once because I don't think, remember, I'm not like I'm more of a snow person than a water person, but I really, really, really enjoyed that. Here's another leaving Oda. Absolutely gorgeous. Norway is breathtaking. And here we are. Our last kind of big day before we came back to Rotterdam was in Bergen, Norway. And when I had been to Bergen before, we did stuff outside of Bergen. So it was really fun to have like an all day walking around Bergen day. And we went to the ice bar and we went to two amazing yarn shops and one very small, but I found one thing I'm going to show you that I'm absolutely so excited about. Another really big one that I also really loved. And it was just fun to have a day to wander. And then we wandered back to the boat. And one of the things I always do when I'm on cruises is I always say yes to the cheesy photography. So this is an amazing cheesy photography photo of me and Edna and Mary. That's Mary Aranella from Lyrical Knits. And she and I had never met before. And Edna's from Canada. And we had a great time together. So much fun. Another absolutely ridiculous photo. This is me and my new friend Nancy. And the sailor guy. Gotta love him. And then the last day when we got back to Rotterdam, we had to transfer to Amsterdam. So Susan from Wild Onion organized this great like cheese factory and clog making factory experience. And you had to wear glasses if you were close to the wood chips. So I really love this photo of Becky and oh my God, Kim, I got your name right there, of Becky and Kim and their hysterical glasses he gave them to wear, their safety glasses. I, of course, knit in a giant pair of clogs while I was watching him make clogs. And that's Edna eating French fries, which we did in Amsterdam over on the left. And there is Kim wearing her Tosca tank in the bling tea, not the bling tea, but the blingola yarn kits from my shop. And she got that done. She was working on it on the cruise, and then the neckline wasn't fitting quite right. And I was like, I think you just need to do a few more rounds on the neckline to close it in a little bit. And taking out a bind off with that yarn is a little challenging. And I was like, well, I guess if I'm making you add more rounds, I'll do it for you. So I got to knit on that or unknit it a little bit for Kim, and then she finished it. And it looks so good. The fit is great. And it was a really fun cruise top. And finally, I would like to leave you with this photo that I took in Amsterdam of a pool hall for nudists. That's all I'm going to say right there. Right? If you are coming in late to the chat, remember you can watch other stuff later. You can come back and watch this once it is all done. I just saw some people coming in. So much fun. Right? LOL, Lola's thrown herself in there. So that's actually fewer photos that I normally show. I had a great time. I'm realizing I didn't have any photos of Susan from Wild Onion in there, who was super fun to hang out with. And those I had posted on Instagram and Facebook. So they're out there. It was a blast. Can I show you the yarn I got? Because I kind of told you where I went, but now I want to show you. And I think what we should do is start with Iceland and then kind of go through the destinations. And I have actually almost like one yarn from every country, which that's a good goal when you go on a knitting cruise to a bunch of different countries. So first up from Iceland, the only yarn that I got in Iceland, because I still have a fair amount of Lopi from other trips, is this Icelandic cashmere that I already told you about. And one of these skeins is going to be the giveaway at the end of this live. And one is mine, mine, mine. Next up, when I went to Faroe, I got yarn from two places. So I got yarn from Kvivik Knit, and this yarn is a Falkland Island merino that is milled in Faroe Island. And then it is dyed with different vegetable matter and flora from Faroe. So if I put it over here, unfortunately, all of the words are in Faroese, and I forgot to ask Susanna what they were. We were kind of giggling about crap. I want to guess that crap is onion, like onion skins. If anybody here speaks Danish or they speak Faroese, they might know what crap is or has Google Translate. You can let us know in the comments. That's what I love about being live, is it's like we all get to work together. And this yarn color really is gorgeous. Here, if I kind of take myself away, you can see it. I think it's really unique to find naturally dyed yarns that are variegated, and I'm always really intrigued when I find them. And I think this will do some really interesting color work at some point for something, but it's just basically like my signature spirit color. Y'all know I wear colors like this all the time, so I had to get it. Next up in Faroe Islands, we went to a mill that I was telling you about called Kira. And Kira is run by a young woman, Rebecca, who's a knitwear designer, and her family. And they also have a Belfast mini mill. I showed more of her in that reel, and I didn't have still photos as well to show you. But she had this really gorgeous, you're going to sense a theme here. It's a single ply lace weight yarn, and it is similar to Jill's Lee, maybe a little bit toothier, but I think when it's knit up at a loose gauge, and then maybe I use like some hair conditioner to lay down the guard hairs and like floof it up a bit, I think it's going to make an incredibly warm, lightweight, long-lasting sweater. So I had to buy this, and I got one in the light color, and I got two in this gorgeous, it's not actually black, it's like a deep, deep, deep brown. And I know I'll end up wearing the crap out of the sweater whenever I knit it. I have no idea when that's going to be or what that sweater is going to look like. Maybe I could use that einband that I have that's naturally dyed from Iceland along with all of this and just do something striped. Like I could use, look at me coming up with ideas as we talk about it, like the Lowland Cheetah measurements, but just do something striped with all of them. And that would be crazy wearable. I'd wear the crap out of it once I'm tired of Lowland Cheetah. Then when we went to Rauma, I got 3 yarns in Rauma, and these I think I can put underneath the camera. And these are Rauma's Norwegian wool called Finnel. They are milled in Norway. They are Norwegian wool, and they're really experts at milling there. Their mill scene was huge. Do you guys want to talk about my nails and how pretty they are? Just sorry, squirrel. I got 3 colors. This one's actually more purpley than it's kind of showing up right here. And I actually bought a headband because they had a headband there that I didn't want to buy, but they had this hat pattern that is like a traditional Norwegian lined hat pattern. And I think it'll be amazing for skiing. So I got 3 colors just to do like a little color work headband for myself at some point, or maybe it'll become a giveaway at some point if I never get around to it. But that was like the thing that I kind of chose from Rauma. And then I also got some stuff to swatch for future stuff that I can't tell you about. Try to keep a few things under my hat. And then finally, when we were in Bergen, of course, I forget the name of the huge store that we were in Bergen. And if you Google knitting stores in Bergen, it'll be the first store to come up. And it's very, very big. It was directly opposite of those like iconic Bergen houses on the other side of the harbor, kind of up 2 streets. And what was interesting there is sometimes when you go to kind of the modern European knitting stores, I get an idea of what's coming down the line in terms of like what is about to hit the States like in a year or so. And so when I was in Europe last year, I forget how I found, yeah, I was in Europe maybe 2 years ago. I saw some sequin yarns in places and I was like, oh, that's fun. And then you all know I did Blingola last winter. I was able to find that sequin yarn and I did like a small run and there was a cowl and a scarf and I did a little vest out of it. And when I was at that shop this time, they had this like giant bling bar of all of these different sparkly yarns. And it was kind of amazing. It's pretty exciting. I was like, wow, I was really on top of it. And when we were walking around, a lot of people were wearing sweaters with bling in them on the cruise and then just kind of like out and about in all the cities we were in. So I think you might notice that bling is kind of having a comeback right now. So those of you that already have your Blingola kits or have already knit your scarves, you're like one step ahead of the game and wear it if you go to Europe. But one thing that I saw there that I hadn't seen in a while was this amazing furry yarn that knits up a little bit like a Muppet. And it's pretty. Let me see if I can get it underneath here. I was joking with Max that it doesn't matter if the camera's not focused because it's not like you can focus on fur very well like this. I don't know what it's going to be like to knit with, like if it's going to be annoying to knit with. I think you're going to knit with a very big needle, like a 11 or a 13, and it's going to knit up quite loose. But what I did was I saw that they had a bunch of sweaters at that shop knit up in this, and I saw people wandering around and wearing them, and they're like kind of schlumpy and yummy looking, and just like they look like little blankets of coziness. And a lot of them had this with like some bling in it too. And I was like, I'm never going to wear a blingy Muppet sweater. But then at the next shop I went to, which I had been with my friend Andrea when we were there a few years back, I got this thread that is also like it's like metallic. And if you were in Lowlember a few years ago, you got a spool of this in a multicolor. And these together, I think this will actually like really add something to this and add a little bit of definition to it. I almost got this in this amazing kind of blue-green color. And first I realized that it looked too much like the green fuzzy sweater I'm knitting right now. And then I was like, oh my God, that is going to make Oscar the Grouch. Like it was the best Oscar the Grouch color. So I decided to go for navy, which is also Cookie Monster. And I'm here for that. I'm going to be Sparkly Cookie Monster. So this might be my like December, I want to whip up a sweater for myself. I'm not sure it's going to be worthy. I think it's going to be such a basic shape, and I don't tend to do those like super basic shape patterns. I like to, you know me, I like tip little tricks and stuff in there, but I'm kind of excited about this, even though I might knit the swatch and be like, oh, hell no, I hate this more than anything. But we'll find out soon enough. And this yarn, because someone's going to ask me, is Basta from Lena Grossa. And I also have some downstairs that's quite different from Lang. And so I'll swatch them both and see, but I bought a sweater quantity of my Cookie Monster yarn. So that's happening. Nice. Someone just said, because I'm not allowed to read the comments, but they said, if you make a grouch cowl, is that a growl? Grrr. Oh, we could have a growl cowl where we just kind of like growl all the time. Grrr. Okay, that's good. Here we go. What are we doing next? Squirrel. That's kind of everything big stuff to tell you. Yarn, travel, what I've been knitting, what I'm getting excited about. It's a lot. In terms of sewing, I actually finished my quilt that I started this winter. My friend Jackie Puleo taught a quilting class at my local quilting shop, Quilters Corners in Ithaca, New York. and I took a class with her. This is the Galaxy Star Quilt. I made the queen size because go big or go home, and my bed needed a summer quilt. I used the thinnest cotton batting that they sold, and then I also used cotton on the back. So it is not super heavy. And if I need things to be a little bit warmer, I can like layer a blanket underneath it. But otherwise, I sleep with a down comforter in the winter, which was like just too hot in the summer. So this is a really nice lighter layer that also has like a little bit of heft to it. I did get it quilted at Quilters Corners. I'm going to say that the next time I make a quilt, I think that I'm going to either, I don't know, like throw more money at the quilting or quilt it myself. I like the quilting, but it's like bigger than I would have done. I think I would have wanted a little bit of a smaller scale, but I have not washed it yet. And it is like my first really like traditional real quilt, and I'm very happy with the colors. I talked about it in a past live, but I used some fabrics from Rifle Paper Company. I used some vintage Marimekko, and then I did a little stash diving and also bought some fat quarters. So I was kind of like all over the place with it. And the backside I did a little patchworking on as well because I got cheap and I didn't want to like buy the full width fabric. I wanted to work with what I had. It was really fun to do. I'm glad it's done. And I'm really excited to get back to sewing clothing. So I am going to make some Bobby overalls with a group of friends at the end of the month. So I'm gearing up for that. And I have some awesome mustard denim that I'm looking forward to using. And then I actually just did a skirt test, and I'm wearing the skirt now. I've never really tried to do this where it's really hard because of where the camera is. So if I stand up, you can't even really see it this way. So this skirt that I'm wearing is a skirt test that I did for a designer called Foxy Patterns. And the sizing, I think, had some errata in it when I first chose my size. So I made a size 8 on the top. And clearly, I'm more of a size 6 because it's supposed to be, if I get my shirt out of the way, I'm wearing a bodysuit, so we're okay. It's supposed to be right around my belly button, and it's definitely falling farther than that. And the thing that you cannot see, this was kind of my like wearable muslin toile, is that it's blocked. It's got this beautiful yoke that has a point that goes like that, and then it's got different bottom panels. And I'm going to maybe make it this weekend in a stiffer cotton, not like the floral rayon that I did, that really shows that blocking. I'm kind of ready to like recut out the smaller size and try it again. So it's really fun for me to test a sewing pattern because so many of you have helped me out with test knits, and it's really interesting to be on the other side of the coin for testing. She's using Slack, which I've used before for tests. We use it on and off, depending. But I will tell you that this skirt, which is just like my muslin for trying out the pattern, I made it on Sunday, and I think I've worn it. It needs to be washed. Let's just put it that way. I think I've worn it ever since I made it. It's like the perfect summer skirt, and the floral is really fun. It seems to be like going with lots of tops, and it's going to pack down teeny tiny for my trip next week. So that's exciting. That's my sewing plans. And I also want to make some more jeans. I'm going to get some sewing done this summer. In terms of listening and reading and watching, that's what I always do before we kind of finish up for the night. So if you have any questions, now is the time to start to pop them into the chat so that when I'm done, I can look for your questions, and then I'll tell you about the giveaway, and then we will say goodnight. So for listening, I listen to audiobooks, and I just finished Lena Dunham's Famesick. I was one of the people who really liked Girls when Girls came out, and I watched all of Girls. It was cringy. It was hard. I think that it was a little before its time, and it was really interesting to listen to her talk about that time and how they were trying to like not be Sex and the City and be so much more real than that, and kind of like the progression of her writing and acting, and then what happened with her in terms of like how fame really made her a bit sick or made it so she couldn't take care of her body when her body was telling her that it needed to be taken care of. And she reads the memoir, and I am always drawn to memoirs that are read by the person, the memoir, who wrote the memoir. I find those to be pretty powerful. And since she's an actress, she did a really good job. So I very much liked Lena Dunham's Famesick. I have The Calamity Club by Catherine Stockett queued up. I've heard great things about The Calamity Club, so that's going to be my next listen. And then the other thing is my friend Nancy told me about Unbiased Science, which is a podcast, and I've been bouncing around with those. They're very interesting. They kind of take like the hippest, nutrition thing that's happening or something about like menopause or GLP-1s, and they break down the science to kind of break down like, is this true, this thing that you heard from Maha or on Instagram or your local nutritionist? And I'm finding it very interesting. So I listen to those in doses. I've been listening to kind of like one or two a week, and educational. And I appreciate that because it's very hard to tell fact from fiction with science sometimes, especially when you are not a scientist. In terms of reading, on the cruise, I read The Teacher by Freida McFadden, which I have a rule about not reading like murder mystery thriller things while I'm sleeping, but I guess I was on the cruise and I was like, I'm a little on vacation, and it definitely kept me up a few nights. It definitely would like wake up at 2 a.m. to like read and find out what was going to happen next to just get it over with. If you like that kind of thriller, you might enjoy The Teacher, but I think Frida's writing is a little too sensational and page turnery for me to sleep well. I am reading, as a balance to that, I'm reading a book right now called Happier Here with You that I'm almost done with. And that is a feel good, it's a historical romance in that there's a contemporary romance happening, but they are looking back at historical events. And I won't tell you too much about it, but I'll give you the name below this when we're done. So if that sounds interesting to you and you like a easy nighttime read like I do, you might enjoy that. And then when I'm done with it, I have Whistler by Ann Pachett queued up, and I've heard phenomenal things. That just came out at the beginning of June, and my book group is reading that at the end of August, so I kind of wanted to wait to start reading it, but I'm almost ready to start reading it, so I'm ready to chat about it. And then watching wise, I have been watching the new season of Project Runway on Hulu, season 22. I hate watch the new Project Runway because the judges are mean and the contestants are mean to each other, and I still have to watch it. So the next one comes out, only the first episode has come out, and the next one comes out when I wake up Friday morning. So Friday night, I will get to watch the second one, but that's like a hate watch. So in the meantime, a love watch that I am watching is The Love Story. So I was done with Project Runway on Hulu and I didn't know what to watch. And Hulu suggested that I watch Love Story. And that is the love story of John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. And I tried not to read many reviews about it. I was like, well, I'll just watch one. And if I like it, I'll watch the second one. I think it's 9 episodes and I am 5 episodes in, and they just got married. And I believe that I heard that it's about to change from being this like beautiful girl gets guy love story to something a little bit more heart-wrenching. So I try not to suggest things until I've watched the whole thing, but I am all in, and you know what I'm going to be doing tonight when we are done with this live. I am going to be working on my fuzzy green sweater so that I can get that done, and I am going to watch The Love Story. 4 more episodes to go. In terms of eating, I finally made garlic scape salt. So when you grow garlic, and we have like a small patch in our garden, they grow this flower basically out at the top, and that's called the garlic scape. And you're supposed to cut it off of the garlic plant before it blooms because you want the plant to put energy into the bulb and not into the flower. It's an allium. And Max was awesome. And when I was away, he cut all my garlic scapes for me and put them in a fridge. And when I came back, I was like, I have to make my garlic scape salt that I made last year. That was so good. And I meant to bring the jar up here because I made a whole quart of it. And basically all you do is cut off the very top of the garlic scape that has the little bulb on the very top, and then you grind it up in a Cuisinart till it's fine, and then I hand massaged it into a bunch of Meldon sea salt to like break it all up in there, and just massaged it, and then I put it out on my very hot deck on a day that didn't have any humidity, and it dried in a few hours, and now we have garlic scape salt. Garlic scapes themselves, when you cook with them, are very, very strong, but garlic scape salt is like really mild. And people who have low FODMAP diets or find that garlic is disturbing, like upsetting for them, sometimes the garlic scape isn't. So I can use that salt in place of some things. And I like it on eggs. I like it on popcorn. I like it when I grill. Should I just keep going? It's so yummy. And my daughter was like, yay, I get more. I think she used all of hers up, and I'll give a little bit away for holiday presents, but I only made a quart. So next year I'm going to make more so that I can do more for presents because it goes fast. And the other thing that I made this weekend for a party that I just linked in my newsletter this morning is scarpaccia, which is an Italian zucchini baked good that's very, very flat. And it's got cornmeal and flour, or I use chickpea flour for it. And I'll give you the recipe below that I also put in my newsletter. And that, I really love it. I add a little Parmesan in it, and it's kind of like thin and crispy and yummy, and it uses up a lot of zucchinis. So if you have a lot of zucchinis like we get from our CSA, then you might want to make this the summer of scarpaccia too. And once you Google it once, you're going to see scarpaccia everywhere. So I'm looking over to see if there's any questions. Like I said, can low lancha be knit with fingering weight yarn? Sure, I would say as long as you get the gauge of 5 stitches to the inch, you could use fingering weight yarn. So the trick for that would be to cast on a big gauge swatch and make sure that you like the fabric. I'm not sure how it would work in like a superwash sock yarn, but in a woolly fingering weight yarn, like Spindrift from Shetland, or another woolly fingering weight yarn, it might work really beautifully. So let me know how that goes. I want to hear. Someone else wants to know, what is the chain for the necklace made of? It is stainless steel. It is 1.1 millimeter stainless steel. Do you think I'll be making companion earrings or a bracelet for Mithrola? Potentially in the future. I think it would be really fun. The problem with Mithrola is it uses up almost all of that whole spool. So it'll end up being a separate kit, but maybe I can do a kit that would be like earrings and a bracelet that would use that 11 yards. So that's part of my playing next week because I have some patterns I think I can jump off of to see how they work. Good questions, you guys. Whistler's getting added to lists right now. Sue said she had air fryer rutabaga fries with homemade taco seasoning. We don't have an air fryer yet, but could be in our future. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions. I still really think a grouch cowl should be a growl. I love that so much. Thanks for that one. Giveaway. Last month's giveaway was this skein of yarn called Hardcore Friends. It is self-striping yarn dyed by 716 Knit in Buffalo. I got it when I was teaching to the Buffalo Guild. And I asked you all for series that you were watching. I was looking for a long series that I could watch for a while. And I randomly chose one of you. And I randomly chose a really good friend. And I was like, Sue gets to win anyway. Especially because the show that Sue suggested is a show somebody else told me I should watch. So Sue Christensen's 5073, you won some self-striping sock yarn, and I know you are going to knit an awesome pair of socks with these. I can't wait to see what you do. She said, I love the pit so much that I've decided to watch ER. There are a million episodes and somehow I never watched it. I also love Hacks with Jean Smart, love this yarn. I also loved Hacks. I also loved The Pit. And I've never seen ER, and my friend Vanessa just told me to watch ER. So ER is going to happen after the love story is done. And Sue, I'm going to get this skein of yarn to you. Let me know if you want me to bring it in September or mail it to you. I'm happy to do either that you want. And as soon as this live is over, do not leave a comment in the live chat if you've been watching live. Just leave a comment telling me what you loved the most in this live. Like, what are you excited about? What was funny to you? What didn't you know about? Something that resonated with you. It's fun for me when I do lives to know what you like to see and hear. Thank you so much for watching, hanging out tonight. I hope everybody stays safe. Please watch your vegetables or cook them if you're going to eat them right now until we know what the explosive episodes are all about. Be careful in wildfire smoke if you're experiencing that right now. Keep yourself safe. Keep yourselves knitting. I so appreciate you. Great night.